Hello everyone. It's been a while since I gave a talk, but this is the first of a trinity of talks I'm giving called We Are Humanity. So they'll be like interconnected, kind of cross-pollinated. It's really like one talk just split into three parts. First of all, I'll light the candle of harmony. So we want to feel harmony within ourselves as we listen. Get to a very harmonious state of mind. There's a candle of harmony in front of the Buddha. Now, first of all, let's have a little meditation. Just get us in the right frame of mind for the talk. Get myself in the right frame of mind for the talk, for all that matter. Right, okay. Take a deep breath, breathe out, and just let all tension disappear from your being. Be at peace. Never will I seek nor receive private individual salvation. Never will I enter into final peace alone, but forever and everywhere will I live and strive for the redemption of every creature throughout the world from the bonds of conditioned existence. That was a pledge of Kuan Yin. I'll have to apologise because there are workmen outside. I hope it doesn't interfere too much with the talk. Building a housing estate just across from where I am, which is rather loud, unfortunately. So anyway, this is the law of love and the law of violence, because Leo Tolstoy wrote concerning this in a book which I like a lot. So what defines the two is whether a person follows a path of spirituality, in which case they would promote love and peace, or the path of violence, which is always reserved for the materialistically minded, whether they call themselves atheists, agnostics, or religious. No truly religious person would support any act of violence or coercion. H.P. Blavatsky wrote, "In our humble opinion, the only essentials in the religion of humanity are virtue, morality, brotherly love, and kind sympathy with every living creature, whether human or animal." This is the common platform that our society offers to all to stand upon. The most fundamental differences between religions and sects sinking into insignificance before the mighty problem of reconciling humanity, of gathering all the various races into one family, and of bringing them all to a conviction of the utmost necessity in this world of sorrow to cultivate feelings of brotherly sympathy and tolerance, if not actually of love. Having taken for our motto in these fundamentals unity, in non-essentials full liberty, it's very important. In all things charity, we say to all collectively and to everyone individually, Keep to your forefathers' religion, whatever it may be, if you feel attached to it. Brother, think with your own brains, if you have any. Be by all means yourself, whatever you are, unless you are really a bad man. And remember above all, that a wolf in his own skin is immeasurably more honest than the same animal under a sheep's clothing. So it is unfortunate that most people today find it almost impossible to live up to these words, or even to those of Jesus in the Bible, who told us to love our enemies and bless those that curse us. Those in positions of government would much rather spend money on the military for fear of invasion by other countries. And nowadays, they even contemplate an attack from outer space. This is far from a normal, balanced state of mind, and it sadly affects almost everyone, from the highest to the lowest, in the blinkered eyes of society anyway. It's a kind of insanity that affects those divorced from the guidance of their higher selves, but becomes regarded as normal because it is a state of mind shared by the majority of people. Plato stated that heaven-sent madness is preferable to man-made sanity. It is a reversal of what actually is true. Spirituality regarded as madness, and material thought based upon totally erroneous conceptions is regarded as sane. In reality, we all have the same potential. We are all children of the light, denizens of eternity, as I often say, because I believe those expressions are very mantric and very uplifting, inspiring. Violence is very much concerned with our lower nature and is absent from the higher planes of being. In the Theosophical glossary, the word karma, K-A-M-A, not to be confused with karma, with an R, K-A-R-M-A, so often regarded as just being lower desire, as in the Kama Rupa and the Kama Sutra, for example. But in the Theosophical glossary, it says, karma is the first conscious, all-embracing desire for universal good. Love, and for all that lives and feels, needs help and kindness. The first feeling of infinite tender compassion and mercy that arose in the consciousness of the creative one force, as soon as it came into life and being as a ray from the absolute. There is no idea of sexual love in the conception. Karma is preeminently the divine desire of creating happiness and love. And it is only ages later, as mankind began to materialize by anthropomorphization its grandest ideals into cut and dried dogmas, that karma became the power that gratifies desire on the animal plane. That's really, really interesting. Really, really interesting. It explains a lot. You can think about that afterwards. So this feeling is what dwells deep in the heart of all of us. It is only when we become enshrouded by material ideas and thoughts that we lose sight of this, and hatred and violence come into being. We do not know of any other way to control others, nor do others know of any other way to be controlled. This is truly the fall of man. The Tao Te Ching states, when the master governs, the people are hardly aware that he exists. Next best is a teacher who is loved. Next, one who is feared. The worst is one who is despised. If you don't trust the people, you make them untrustworthy. If you don't trust the people, you make them untrustworthy. A leader must either lead in a way that does not impinge on the lives of their subjects, or they should rule with loving kindness, or both. To do this, they must have some true spiritual values, not necessarily religious, because religious leaders in the past have often proved to be the least spiritual of all and the most cruel. Leo Tolstoy writes, finding strange the blindness of the men who believe in the necessity for violence, and convinced as I am of the contrary, it is not arguments, however, that can persuade me and convince others of the truth. What determines my belief is the certainty of the spiritual nature of man, of which love is the manifestation. But real love, revealed to us by Christ, excludes the possibility of all violence, excludes the possibility of all violence. Digest that. And he goes on to say, I do know, and no one can know, if the use of violence or resignation when threatened with evil is useful or useless. That's a very intelligent comment. Harmful or harmless. What I know, and what everyone knows, is that love is good. Love is good. It is good when men feel affection for me. It is much better if I feel affection for men, and women, of course. In fact, the general good of all is my affection for all. Not only those who love me, but as Christ said, for those who hate me, who injure me. Strange as it may seem, strange as it may be, to anyone who has not felt this, it is nevertheless true. And the more I ponder on it, the more surprised I am not to have felt it sooner. So, very wise words. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. As the Bible tells us, of course. Those who try to rule by coercion will cause the people to rise up in the end. And these are far more powerful than any government, as has been proved in the past. The French Revolution, etc. Russian Revolution. Percy Bysshe Shelley, the poet, writes, love withers under constraints. Its very essence is liberty. It is compatible neither with obedience, jealousy, nor fear. Love withers under constraints. Its very essence is liberty. It is compatible neither with obedience, jealousy, nor fear. So, love is freedom. Violence and coercion are imprisoning. They're imprisoning the natural intuition in us and clipping love's wings. But if we find our inner self and put ourselves under its guidance, nothing can prevent us from becoming what we truly are in essence. Of course, if we compare modern times to times of old, when people didn't raise an eyebrow when executions took place in public, and when kings and queens beheaded people for trivial misdemeanors, then things in that way seem a lot better, and indeed in many ways they are. Though still love does not take precedence in the world in general, it is all rather cold and diplomatic, as we find nowadays. People speaking in almost robotic voices in government, devoid of any kind of compassion and love. So it is a sad fact that love has not been practiced as Jesus taught. The world would have been much different had people listened to the Sermon on the Mount, instead of creating a religion that is opposite in most ways to what he taught. Of course, there are many who follow the teachings, who do try to live the life, but they are in a minority nowadays. Christianity has moved away from actually living the life to indulging in rituals derived from ancient paganism and the doctrine of salvation through Jesus. Buddha went even further in his teachings of love and compassion, and there's a much larger percentage of Buddhists living the life, but still not enough to affect the thinking of the majority. Or are they? Maybe thought is much more powerful than we think. The majority would rather prefer the Old Testament teaching of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, which, as Mahatma Gandhi says, will make the old world blind and toothless. And unfortunately, this is coming true. Well, it's come true. But we need to think positively. The Theosophical movement came along at the end of the 19th century to continue and expand the teachings of the Buddhas and Jesus and many others. The masters who initiated the movement wanted a brotherhood of humanity, a real universal fraternity started, an institution which would make itself known throughout the world and arrest the attention of the highest minds. If this object had been taken seriously, then most of the wars and disasters that have plagued humanity since would not have arisen. That's not to say some wouldn't, but it would have incredibly reduced the amount. So pure love is one of those things that makes us truly human. I'll be talking in my next talk about what it means to become human. Otherwise, our lives are very much animalistic. In Buddhism, there are 6 realms in which we can be born, representing states of mind and being. In Theosophy, we always talk of 7. So the 7th may be the realm of enlightenment. But first, there is the realm of the devas, or the gods, which represents a state of mind that is very self-satisfied. People who believe they have everything they want in life and therefore have zero interest in anything spiritual. The next realm, we have the realm of the Asuras. These are the warring gods, or people who are very much attached to violence, maybe terrorists, politicians, armies, etc. Then come the Pretas, or hungry ghosts, the state of mind of those who are always craving, but never satisfied, whether for material goods or sensation. Next come the hellish realms. These are those who are constantly in misery and pain. They inflict it on themselves and often on others, or they are born in conditions of extreme suffering. The 5th is the realm of animals, a state in which people are content to live a very basic life, concerned with making a nest, a family, providing food and shelter, etc., which is probably the most common state of mind nowadays. And the last is the human realm. This is the most balanced and the most suitable state of mind to gain enlightenment. Those who have this consciousness are developing the truly human qualities of love and compassion. Confucius said that without fellow feeling, as he puts it, we are merely mannequins. So these are all states in which karma places us. But in each realm, there is an image of Avalokiteshvara, or Kuan Yin, who represents compassion and are there to give hope to all the inhabitants that they can actually escape. So these states of mind are not deterministic. Therefore, everything we do and think as a human race should be to promote love and compassion and a brotherhood of humanity, regardless of race, creed, sex, caste, or colour. Governments should constantly have this in mind when they are chosen to represent the people. The Mahachohan, who was the Theosophical master's master in Theosophical teaching, states, the intellectual portions of mankind seem to be fast dividing into 2 classes. The one unconsciously preparing for itself long periods of temporary annihilation or states of non-consciousness owing to the deliberate surrender of their intellect, its imprisonment in the narrow grooves of bigotry and superstition, a process which cannot fail to lead to the utter defamation of the intellectual principle. The other unrestrainingly indulging its animal propensities with a deliberate intention of submitting to annihilation pure and simple in cases of failure to millenniums of degradation after physical dissolution. Those intellectual classes reacting upon the ignorant masses which they attract and which look up to them as noble and fit examples to follow, degrade and morally ruin those they ought to protect and guide. Between degrading superstition and still more degrading brutal materialism, the white dove of truth has hardly room where to rest her weary, unwelcome feet. It's time that Theosophy should enter the arena. The sons of Theosophists are more likely to become in their turn Theosophists than anything else. No messenger of truth, no prophet has ever achieved during his lifetime a complete triumph, not even Buddha. The Theosophical Society was chosen as the cornerstone, the foundation of the future religions of humanity. To achieve the proposed object, a greater, wiser, and especially a more benevolent intermingling of the high and the low, of the alpha and the omega of society was determined upon. The white race must be the first to stretch out the hand of fellowship to the dark nations, to call the pure despised nigger brothers. Of course, nigger now is a word that we don't use. It's regarded as being very insulting. This prospect may not smile to all. He is no theosophist who objects to this principle. He is no theosophist who objects to this principle. In view of the ever-increasing triumph and at the same time misuse of free thought and liberty, the universal reign of Satan, Eliphas Levi would have called it, how is the combative, natural instinct of man to be restrained from inflicting hitherto unheard of cruelties and enormities, tyranny, injustice, etc., if not through the soothing influence of a brotherhood and of the practical application of Buddha's esoteric doctrines, or even his exoteric ones? The Dhammapada gives us a wonderful guide to living. But that's so important nowadays, that we have to exercise the soothing influence of a brotherhood and of the practical application of Buddha's doctrines. I mean, think about it. Think about society, think about the governments, think about the way things are at the moment. Just think, are we following this path of brotherhood and love, of compassion? Are we? So brotherhood and sisterhood is what is needed. Orthodox religion will always be divisive, and this makes true brotherhood an impossibility. So they are a hindrance to truly spiritual progress. And those intellectual classes who created laws and regulations completely divorced from any kind of spiritual values can only cause more suffering than good in the world. Above all this miasmic thought and emotion shines the radiant sun in a sky of pure blue, where those able to soar can breathe freely in the light. The light of pure love. As said in the quote I used from the Theosophical Glossary, love is the first thing that came into being, and the highest we can try to do is nurture the divine desire to create happiness and love in the world. This is what the world needs most of all. What the world needs now is love, sweet love, what do they say? Society in general has become cold. We live increasingly in a virtual world, divorced from any real contact in the true sense of the word. Feelings become shallower based on lower emotions, lust and sentimentality. But this is all on the surface. Deep within, we share the same spiritual essence. No one is superior or inferior in reality. We are only separated by the degree in which we understand who we truly are. Alas, alas, that all men should possess a lyre, be one with the great soul, and that possessing it, a lyre, should so little avail them, says the voice of the silence. Translated by H.P. Blavatsky, of course. That same book also tells us that the great dire heresy of separateness weans us from the rest. And here we have the key to the whole problem. Separateness and its child selfishness is a real problem. It's hard to even conceive how far-reaching this problem is. The Theosophical masters say that religion is the cause of 2/3 of the world's problems, and selfishness the other third. Thomas à Kempis writes, "Love feels no burden, thinks nothing of its trouble, attempts what is above its strength, pleads no excuse for impossibility. For it thinks all things are lawful for itself and all things are possible. Love knows no limits, but ardently transcends all bounds. Love, therefore, does great things. It is strange and effective, while he who lacks love faints and fails." He who lacks love faints and fails. Love is in fact a manifestation of the harmony that reigns in the universe. It is how we express it, as above, so below. It is how we align ourselves with the universe and how we align with each other on a higher level. Many teachings will say that even love is a conditioned concept, or when we get to even higher levels of being, even love will be transcended. But it is a stage on the way, and whilst we live on this plane, it is essential to live it and share it with others. And of course, it's an essential portal to pass through on our way. H.P. Blavatsky writes, "For pure divine love is not merely the blossom of a human heart, but has its roots in eternity." For pure divine love is not merely the blossom of a human heart, but has its roots in eternity. And in an article she wrote on universal love, she goes on to say, "On almost every page of the Bhagavad Gita, we are instructed only to direct our love to that which is eternal in every form, and let the form itself be a matter of secondary consideration." What can all this mean? Well, that love itself is the legitimate object of love. It is a divine, eternal, and infinite power, a light which reflects itself in every object, while it seeks not the object, but merely its own reflection therein. It is an indestructible fire, and the brighter it burns, the stronger will be the light, and the clearer will its own image appear. Love falls in love with nothing but its own self. It is free from all other attractions. A love which becomes attached to objects of sense ceases to be free, ceases to be love, and becomes mere desire. Pure and eternal love asks for nothing, but gives freely to all those who are willing to take. Earthly love is attached to persons and things, but divine spiritual love seeks only that which is divine in everything. And this can be nothing else but love, for love is the supreme power of all. Love is a universal power and therefore immortal. It can never die. We cannot believe that even the smallest particle of love ever died. Only the instruments through which it becomes manifest change their form, nor will it ever be born, for it exists from eternity. Only the bodies into which it shines are born and die and are born again. Nevertheless, the spirit alone is real. The form is an illusion. Love can exist without form, but no form can exist without love. No form can exist without love. It is pure spirit, but if its light is reflected in matter, it creates desire, and desire is the producer of forms. Desire is the producer of forms. Interesting. Thus, the visible world of perishable things is created. But above this visible nature, there exists another, unseen and eternal, which, when all things created perish, does not perish, and from which they who attain to it never return, unless they wish to, I suppose. This is the supreme abode of love, without any object, unmanifested and imperishable, for there no objects exist. Though love is united to love, enjoying supreme and eternal happiness within her own self, and that peace of which the mortal mind, captivated by the illusion of form, cannot perceive. Non-existent for us, and yet existing in that supreme beingness in which all things dwell, for which the universe has been spread out, and which may be attained to by an exclusive devotion to the divinity within ourselves. So, I only recently came across that article by HPB. It's an absolutely fantastic article. So to recap a little bit, the way is to see all our fellow human beings as divine, to see beyond the personality, which is a mask and an illusion, and to understand that the world needs to wake up to reality and see that the inner guide for all of us is the same. This is the only thing that can bring us together. Religion, politics, etc., all work to separate us due to conceptual views, which are all of the lower mind and are totally man-made. We need to return to the natural, to sanity, to an awareness of the higher self. As we can see around us, a materially orientated world does not work. It creates the divisions I have mentioned. It tends to make us afraid of each other. The need to be defensive on a personal and global level. We are not taught to love each other, to see the good and beauty in each other. So we become created in the image of this generally soul-dead world. When we break down the conversations and mindsets of most people, we see that it is all based upon certain things that I mentioned earlier. Getting a partner, making money, entertainment, providing food and clothes, building a nest, etc. Getting a home, a car, having children, presumably to follow the same patterns. But don't get me wrong, all these things are necessary in life, but should not be the sole focus of attention. To these we must add the spiritual dimension. It is not possible or desirable for the majority of people to give up everything and live a purely spiritual life. That is left for the few mystics who have resolved to do so and work through meditation and practice for the good of the world, or in some cases for their own salvation. For most people, the talisman is to see the divine in their fellow human beings, and also to recognize it in themselves and to act accordingly, making this realization a line of life meditation that is always there at the back of their mind, whatever they are doing. If this is followed, there is absolutely no way in which you would think of harming a fellow creature, whether human, animal, or plant, because we would come to realize that what harms one harms the all that we are a part of. I'm not saying that the world would instantly become a golden age, transform into a golden age, but there would still be many levels of consciousness resulting from other lives and karma. But it would certainly set us all on the path of love, and we would all have a common aim. It is this that the governments, education systems, religions, and scientists should be promoting, instead of turning their minds towards creating new weapons of destruction and ways to subdue the populations of the world through coercion and violence. The karma of such actions will be devastating in time. Rumi, the Sufi poet, says, "This is love, to fly toward a secret sky, to cause 100 veils to fall each moment. First, to let go of life. In the end, to take a step without feet, to regard this world as invisible, and to disregard what appears to be the self. Heart," I said, "what a gift it has been to enter this circle of lovers, to see beyond seeing itself, to reach and feel within the breast." We must work to let these veils or masks fall and to see what we really are at our core, what beauty, truth, and love we hold in our very hearts. We have never been the weak, miserable sinners that Orthodox Christianity tries to tell us in the quest to control the masses. We are indeed creatures of light, radiant and immortal in our true nature. Death has no hold on us. When we realize this, nor do any of the constraints that the world attempts to put on us. Our mind-forged manacles are snapped, and then we can truly soar in those clear blue spiritual skies, free at last. Thank you. That's just so a nice little meditation now at the end, just into a meditative state, be at peace. Breathe out. Just feel this peace in your hearts. I read a book called Fantasies by George MacDonald, my favourite book. At the end, I noticed he has a voice say, a great good is coming to you, and notice a great good. Let's feel for the next year that a great good, maybe this year by the time this gets out, let's feel for 2021 that a great good is coming to us all. Let's be positive and optimistic and bright. And image a beautiful world, a wonderful world. Think of nature, all the beauties of nature. Think of the sun, think of light. Think of all that's good, true, and beautiful within ourselves and outside of ourselves. And create in our minds this wonderful golden age. So just breathe out, be at peace, be relaxed for a few moments. Om Shanti, 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 peace, peace, peace. Peace on earth and goodwill to all beings. I should have rung the bell really, but I'll ring it now. In fact, I'll do a little. I hope all the work outside hasn't been too disturbing for you. Thank you, brothers and sisters, and see you anon.